You probably think you know what investors want to hear, but you likely don't. I've raised hundreds of millions of dollars from investors and institutional capital. Please keep watching if you want to know what investors don't want to hear and what they do want to hear. In the first 3 years of my company, I went from no track record and not knowing anything about raising institutional capital and pitching my projects to raising tens of millions of dollars from large institutional groups that put your deals under a lot of scrutiny. And I've done several $100 million in real estate projects and gotten many deals successfully funded. I think the most bullshit things I've heard is like, it's really just, it's usually if someone's first starting out and it's very clear that they just didn't look and do any research. And it's really easy to be like, oh, well, they're first starting out. But I think one thing that's given me a unique perspective is that I didn't have formal training. I work with finance people that have MBAs and work with institutional investors that have had a ton of formal training and, understand how to build really complicated Excel models. I didn't have that training, and I can still look at basics of a deal or look at basics of a market and fundamentally understand if it's going to be a good deal or not. I just don't think there's any excuse for sort of skipping that step. And so many times someone pitches me on something and it's like, hey, I don't have to be like some economist or, formally trained in a million ways in Excel to understand that you want to build something that there's a ton of supply of and that makes no financial sense. So the first glaring red flag that you would see, incredibly commonly, you have buildings that are being built in Nashville for over $100 million that are horrible investments. And you have people that just are doing them, but there's fundamental aspects of the deal points or the information that is so glaringly obviously wrong that it's scary. It's like the Mark Twain quote from The Big Short. It amazes me the amount of money that people will invest into something that's just so blatantly, obviously wrong. But people get really caught up in the hype and the emotions of it and the market and how much capital. And I've been guilty of it myself. I've done investments that were not as profitable as some of my other investments because it was just so popular and there was so much hype around it. Real estate development is known to be risky and bankrupt people. I personally am structured in such a way that I can't, ideally that couldn't happen unless I don't know, one of my buildings fell down or something, but it's a very risky business, and real estate developer particularly has to be a very enthusiastic person and a very dreamy visionary, and sometimes that means that they aren't as practical and can make mistakes or take on risks that are too much. And I've been there, but I've learned after getting your teeth kicked in a few times where you can make mistakes and how to de-risk a project. I think every investor I talk to, a lot of investors care a lot more about the person they're investing with than the actual deal that they're investing in. You could have the best deal in the world, and if you're a total asshole, investors don't want that, right? So the integrity of the person that people are investing in. I've seen investors stay loyal to people that might have not made them the best returns over time, but that always do the right thing and continue to invest and have faith in people. That's even happened with one of my investors when I did an office deal that didn't work out after COVID. I started it before COVID. The office market totally changed, and I had an investor where I did the right thing. You can always try to give fees back or really try to mitigate the situation, stay committed to the deal, don't just throw up your hands as an example. And the investor really appreciates that because inevitably, especially in real estate development, even in real estate investing, but as I've mentioned before, in real estate development, the development cycle is so long. There's so many variables that can happen. An investor cares that that person is going to handle it well and do the right thing a lot more than just the bottom line. You will inevitably end up in markets like I have an opportunity zone project with an amazing investor that's a 10-year hold. We're like married basically for 10 years. So there's going to be, since we've started that project, there's been a pandemic, there's been a shift to capital markets, the Nashville multifamily market's completely changed. I hope, we had a bombing over Christmas. We had colossal snowstorms. We've had property managers quit. Like, you have to get through that with your investor and how you deal with overcoming those things. And it goes vice versa. Like, I don't like taking money from assholes. Like, we kind of have this joke in my office that like, we won't do business with like asshole New Yorkers, because it is like a marriage when you get into an investment with someone. And so I think the integrity of the people that you're investing with or that you're taking money from is first and foremost ahead of the deal that you're doing. So that's probably one of the biggest things that I think investors really respect, is someone's like integrity. Along those lines, one thing that I see people do is like, when you're doing a pitch or you are talking with an investor, you just can't lie. You just can't, like, no matter the fuck what, like, you can't lie, because it will always come back at you if that happens. And I've seen that happen to people. If you don't know the answer to something, just say, I will get back to you on that. I'm not saying you don't have to highlight every point mistake you make. You don't have a huge track record in something. You don't need to focus on it. But if someone asks you point blank, hey, have you been to this site and you haven't, or have you done this before and you haven't, or how much money you're putting in that you didn't, or anything that's like a lie, like, I'm telling you, it's just not worth it in the end. It's a cardinal rule for me, is like, I always am honest with my investors, because it's just better in the end.
In entrepreneurship, a lot, they're like, fake it till you make it. Like, do you think that's just bullshit?
No, you do have to, I wouldn't say fake it, but I would say, lean on and have a bunch of confidence in the beginning to get something across the line. The way that I faked it till I made it was like, I partnered with a developer, architect, builder to do my first couple projects. They did have a track record. They had built things. They had developed something in Nashville. I had to give away profit, but it was a way for me to lend their experience to me to do my first couple developments. I guess you would say I was the developer, but I was kind of the fake developer, because I had people that were more experienced on my team, or partners that were really doing a lot of the development, where I was putting more together the capital stack and handling the sales and things like that. So there's ways to like fake it till you make it, where you're, one, super competent, two, leaning on the track records of others, presenting yourself well, doing a ton of research, making sure your materials are very, very professional without lying, basically. So the top 3 things investors don't want to hear: they don't want to hear about your personal problems. In an investor conversation, I'm not saying to like bottle up your feelings or anything like that, but in an investor setting or an investor conversation, they don't want to hear about your personal problems. Like, it gives the sense that you're unstable. And if you're unstable in your personal life, then how would you be with their investment, or how are you handling their company? So I don't share with my investors if I'm, physically having a hard time because I'm super pregnant, or, I'm scared as shit that the capital markets are like where they're at. I like at least remain on an even keel and not air my dirty laundry.
How do you deal with that? Like, how do you compartmentalize it? Because you've just got to be somewhere for that to go.
Obviously, I spend a lot of time, doing my own personal counseling. I have a great relationship with my husband, with my friends I can talk to. I, really try to spend a lot of time, I go for walks every day. I'm taking care of myself, doing my workout classes, doing sauna, cold plunge, like all the things that create work-life balance that people, talk about are really important to create an even heel, especially if you're doing something that's really high stakes, high caliber. You're taking on a lot of investor income or a lot of investment. You have a lot of responsibility on your plate. Yes, you need to spend even more time taking care of yourself, taking care of your family, keeping yourself organized, all of those sort of rudimentary things that I always don't have a problem prioritizing, to be honest. It's been one of my more successful actions. But when I'm with an investor, if I'm working, like that's what I'm doing right then. That's my hat. I'm not a mom right then. Investors don't want to hear that you have a problem that doesn't have a solution. So there are going to be problems in any investment, but your role is to come up with a solution. So investors don't mind hearing there's a problem, but they want the solution, and it's not their job for you to say, oh, the market changed, there's nothing I can really do. Brokers kind of get a bad rep for this in real estate where it's like, oh, the market's soft. Like, there's always something you can do. And even if it doesn't solve the problem, you have to at least put your best foot forward and propose and think of anything, multiple things that can put you at a point where you can change that situation. So, as an example, we had an industrial property that hasn't been leasing, and you could literally, the market did just change right from under us, right? But an investor doesn't want to hear you're throwing in the towel. An investor wants to hear that you're going to be committed, even if you're going to lose, you're never going to make what you thought you were going to make, that you're going to be committed alongside them till the end to do anything we can do to get it. Maybe we can sell it. Maybe we can sell half of it. Maybe we can sell it to smaller users. Maybe there's a way to subdivide it. Maybe there's a different investor that can come in and recapitalize the project, and we can just look at it on a much longer hold, but at least no one's going to lose money. Like, there's a lot of different solutions that when you step outside the box, you can come up with. An investor wants to know, like I said, that they're investing with someone that is going to be solution oriented and not just hand them a problem. Investors don't want to see a gargantuan amount of information. They want a succinct, bullet-pointed, relevant pitch, especially in the beginning. If they're interested, you can dive into more due diligence items. I get people that pitch me and they send me a video and a pitch deck, and I'm just like, give me one sentence of what you want. I have 5 seconds to reply to you. Otherwise, I'm just not even going to reply to your email. So investors want a succinct breakdown of truthful, really well thought out, poignant points, especially initially, to say what the investment is, because they don't have time. So that's something that's really important. The second thing, the other aspect of that is when you are presenting data, make sure that it's well researched and presented in such a way that it's just not too much information. Even if it's a $100 million investment, like, people won't sit and read every page, and I know it's the most exciting, important thing to you, but to an investor, or to another perspective, people, they just don't have a long attention span anymore. So you have to be really, really succinct, and people just don't want a huge amount of barfing on your decks and data. After raising hundreds of millions of dollars for real estate development, that is what investors want and don't want. If you want to hear more about what I've learned doing real estate development this last decade, please watch this next video.